This is the most interesting moment of the whole experience because when I start the engine, and this is how you start driving a car with 1030 horsepower in an absolute silence. Since 2005, Ferrari has been developing a few unique track versions of its flagship road models. This is how the XX line was created, which has won over a few truly iconic models. Now, for the first time, we are dealing with a model from the XX line allowed to drive on the road. This is how the Ferrari SF90 XX Stradale was created. I'm not sure if I had this right. Okay, I had to check the numbers again because I don't fully trust them. First of all, I want to tell you the key facts about this car. Firstly, it has 1030 horsepower, which is hidden under the hood, which generates more than half a ton of pressure at 250 kilometers per hour. Combined with a four-wheel drive and an automatic F1 two-clutch gearbox, it translates to an acceleration to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.3 seconds, acceleration to 200 kilometers per hour in 6.5 seconds. Of course, such numbers are not cheap, which leads us to another key value, i.e. the price, which is about 4 million PLN. That is base model, and of course there is still a lot to upgrade. However, this did not discourage another 799 clients for the closed version and 499 for the open version. The cars have already been sold, so the fate of this car is already decided. But let me talk about this car because this building behind me is the Enzo Ferrari's office. I'm very curious what he would say about this car because at the moment, the most expensive Ferrari model is a plug-in hybrid, which will go a few dozen kilometers without using a drop of fuel. The engine of this car is generally extremely complicated. It consists of 3 electric units. 2 of them are located at the front for each of the wheels. The third is located here. But I think what is most interesting is this petrol unit, which is somewhere here, deep under this cover, packed close to the ground for the lowest center of gravity. The power increase compared to the base version of SF90 Stradale is only 30 HP, so I won't pretend that it makes a huge difference. What is important in this car is aerodynamics. It's been almost 30 years since we last enjoyed such a view of the back of Ferrari, and I think this is the key to understand this car. I would call the bodywork project a compilation of the best of Ferrari's history, mainly the latest history, because, for example, the light you see here is from Ferrari 499P, which won Le Mans a few months ago and has already gained historical status. We also have exhaust pipes covered with ceramic coating, which are moved higher to make way for this huge diffuser. This is what I said, that the aerodynamics in this car is very important. An interesting thing that I think will not be visible in photos or other videos is the fact that here we have another channel that sends air to this place, so that this element could also take 2 positions that greatly affect the aerodynamic characteristic of the rear. In this place, there are 2 additional inlets that blow heat when the car is standing. Here is another element that refers to the Ferrari F12 TDF. It was great aesthetically, but also functionally, because this solution balances the heat, the pressure inside the wheel without creating additional aerodynamic resistance. Look, here we have a place for another air inlet to the engine. The handle itself, which in no way also affects the airflow. The mirror, which is also shaped in a way that makes even more of air fall into this inlet. The repetition of the ventilation elements from the rear axle, which now also appears in the front, which was not there before. This is how we get to the front, which actually deserves a doctoral thesis in itself because so much is happening here. I will briefly tell you about a few of the most important details, which you can't even see at first glance. Please note that here we have an aerodynamic solution in a place where usually a lot of turbulence appears. We don't want that in such a project. That's why we have an extremely complicated project with many inlets. Here we have an additional splitter, usually very protruding. In road cars, they do not protrude. It is provided at an angle to generate pressure again, but not generate aerodynamic resistance. I have here large inlets which lead to the cooling of the drive system, the electric system that is in front of me. It needs a lot of cooling, and then the air that falls in here is sent here. This is something that was not in the SF90 Stradale. Engineers from Maranello say that this is important because earlier this heat was sent to the floor and it disturbed the airflow under the car. Now, the floor is perfectly even, so the pressure and aerodynamic performance of this model is even greater. But putting aside all the technical aspects, this project looks great to me. And I see another reference to the Ferrari F50. Okay, we moved inside, and as I said, I can see some references to Ferrari F40 or F50. I can feel them inside, and it's great that I can feel like in another icon of Ferrari. I can see here similar harshness of climate. Look at these doors, which are made of carbon fiber. There are no materials that would make it more comfortable. But we are talking about F50 from the future, because when we look in front of us, we have all these screens. Many of these solutions show that Ferrari is very focused on this technical progress. And now, the most interesting moment of the whole car, because when I start the engine, this is how you start driving a car with 1030 horsepower in absolute silence. And this is a pretty dramatic sign of our times, right? We are driving the sharpest model of Ferrari ever made. The fact that we are driving only on electric energy is, of course, due to the countless driving modes available in this model, as in all Ferrari plugins. We have the same Manettino that we had in many Ferrari models, starting with the F430, which is now divided into 5 driving modes, i.e. wet, sport, race, CT off, and ESC off. CT off is a driving mode in which you can play with rear axle, but the assumption is that electronics will save you. In ESC off, you are on your own in this car with more than 1000 HP, and it can be quite an interesting adventure, or very uninteresting. What is new is the second panel with 4 more driving modes, which in turn decides how to use the individual parts of the drive. So we have the mode we started with, hybrid, which as I look at it now, allows us to drive 25 km only on electricity. We are on the right track to continue using electricity. But if we change to performance mode, we will start the combustion engine. We also have qualifying driving mode, in which the power is the greatest and the whole car, even now I feel how it all clings together and leads to achieve the best lap time. And thanks to this, we can use both units at full power, in this case 1030 horsepower. 233 HP are generated by electric units, 797 HP are generated by the 4-litre V8 behind me. This is the ST54 unit, which debuted many years ago in the California T-Series. It has to be admitted that it went through a long road. I remember that in this California T-Series, it was a boring unit. It didn't sound or generate power in any particular way, but then over the years, it became the best fuel unit in the world. That's how it was recognized. That's how it was awarded many titles in the following years. Now it is a development called F154FB. With the debut of the SF90 model, its capacity was increased from 3.8 litres to 4 litres. Many parts were replaced inside, and now to achieve another 17 horses, the pistons were replaced again, and other technologies were used to polish the inlet ducts and to optimize the air circulation and the fuel of the whole mixture in the combustion chambers and inlets. So this unit is being developed for even greater efficiency. Well, maybe now we will just see how it translates into practice. We're entering the action. Oh my, we are going really fast, like the conditions on the track. Reduction to 3rd gear. Let's see what will happen now. It's still really slippery. Oh my, what a speed. It's something abstract. We rely on aerodynamic because the mechanical grip is not that great. The track is really slippery. I'm driving here with a lot of safety. These are just the first laps. It's like a combination of a classic analog supercar with something like a Tesla. So much is happening. I expected this car to be more in the direction of heavy and a little bit dominated by a compromise of a hybrid, and we get a fully racing supercar, which is based primarily on this combustion energy. And it does it in a very wild, very racing way. The components are starting to warm up a little, the tires have more grip, the brakes work in a cosmic way. When you drive like this on fast turns, when you build up speed, the grip of the rear axle is really strong. I asked if there is no need to use the four-wheel system, as in the case with the Ferrari 812 Competizione, but it turns out that because this car has a centrally placed engine, the rear axle grip is really sufficient, but here again, in case of such an extreme construction, we are dealing with the old rule of supercars with a centrally placed engine. I mean, if the rear axle loses grip, it's a game over. It's a very hardcore, very engaging, and very demanding construction. No kidding, this is a real racing school. The fact that this car is called XX, that it has the XX member in its name, is a big obligation not only for the manufacturer, but also for the driver. Okay, we still don't have access to all these 1030 HP because in the performance mode in which we are now, an electric engine generates about 110 HP. Now we turn on the qualifying mode, in which we have about 160 HP in a basic scenario, and the additional 60 HP is activated in the extra boost mode, which the car decides on its own, so it's a bit like a push to pass in a race, but when the computer decides that it's the moment when the additional horses from the electric unit should be released, then the car does it on its own, so until the end, the driver has no control over the power of the car. But you know what? Even when I don't use the throttle pedal at max, it's just overwhelming power. About 900 horsepower. Believe me, that's enough. Some of the cars that have appeared in the last years from other manufacturers are more one-dimensional, more specialized, focused on pure racing, track driving. Here we don't see that. The standard suspension is semi-active, which can be controlled from the inside. There is an option to use a passive multimatic suspension, similar to other sports Ferraris. It is still not as hardcore as, for example, Lamborghini Huracan STO, or even the most powerful, the brightest version of 911 GT3. So on the one hand, it's a car that is very demanding and engaging in nature, but on the other hand, it's still a construction that I imagine can be used on the road and go on a long journey. And it won't be a car in which you will lose all the teeth on bumps or lose your hearing. So it is a really great car, on the principle that you can also use it on public roads, although probably only on the track. It will release its full potential, which is simply amazing. It's another level of what Ferrari has accustomed us to so far. An incredible, extreme, very thrilling construction. And if that's how the plugins of the future are supposed to look like, then we can be calm. If we thought about this car as a spiritual successor to F40 or F50, despite the use of hybrid drive, the SF90 XX Stradale deserves this name.
Third gear on the tight corners, also third gear, yes? Third gear. 1, 2, 3, prima, secondi, tre,